All right, we should be going.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 20th Urban Renewal Commission meeting. Thank you for being here, and thank you to my fellow commissioners for being here as well. Mr. Wiley, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
He's absent.
Commissioner Sean Cross. Here. Commissioner Rachel Lyle-Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Morrow.
Here.
Commissioner Doug Neely.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
And Chair Denise McGriff.
Here. All right, tonight on our agenda, we have 3 items, but before we get to that item, I'd like to call for any comments by citizens who might be attending either by phone or in person tonight. Do we have anyone? Okay. All right, we will move then to the first agenda item, which is End Wetlands Cleanup. And again, let me apologize to Jerry Herman and his folks that we had to postpone this because we got to talking about something else for quite a while. So again, please, thank you for your indulgence and thank you for coming back. So please come on up.
Thank you all for giving us a second chance. We're happy to be here. Somebody's going to roll the slides for me post-haste here, but I want to introduce just a few of the people. Over 30 people worked on a project that James Graham and I put together to help the mayor deal with a piece of land, it's about 13 acres, where 205, your so-called jug handle, and Washington Street come together, which had about 19 homeless camps in it, at least in the past, not anymore, and all sorts of debris and so forth. I want to introduce behind me Cody Hines. Cody, would you stand up for a second? Cody's a crew leader. Cody's name and fame, so to speak, in the city was Officer Lidke when he was murdered, and this facility was eventually named for him. Cody put together an Eagle Scout project with Scout Troop 220 to build benches and so forth up at Rivercrest Park. That's what Cody did before he came to work for us. He's a crew leader. Timothy Miller. Timothy's behind me. Timothy is one of our long-term crew leaders, has worked on many different pieces of project areas, your museums, all of them, End of the Oregon Trail, Museum of the Oregon Territory. He plays a character by the name of J. Harlan Bretz, who was the renowned geologist that described the floods that impacted this area and created our cliffs. He's a kind of an actor in that regard, and he's also a lead in a barbershop quartet. He sings really good. Samuel Laws. Samuel's behind me. Samuel is one of our youngest people, age 14. He's studying with us to be a crew leader for younger people. We'd like to have younger people direct younger people if possible. Samuel, you'll hear about, worked really hard over the last 4 months to learn the trade of cleaning up 13 acres of mess. And last but not least, by any means, is Curtis Johnson. Curtis is 18 years old, and Curtis is really a flowering mechanic and has a lot of skills that we can use in our work. We're going to start our program here with our first slide, and you've seen these things probably in your packet. I'm not sure I can even see them here, but I've got them right in front of me. The area, of course, is where Washington Street becomes the End of the Oregon Trail freeway, and where 205 adjoins. It's an area that you had to build, the city, as a mitigation site when the movement of certain features occurred, including a brand new bridge. The area is a federally designated mitigation site for the building of the jug handle project and so forth. Next to it is a 4-acre metro wetland, and adjoining that is some hill gardens and so forth that were created in the past and all brought together to create a nice gateway kind of landscape. The second slide here in this whole thing shows, I believe, a whole bunch of indications of possible site areas. I'm actually ahead of myself here. What we're going to do, we were asked to look for homeless camps and figure out what to do with them. We tried to engage the whole homeless people, and we did to a point. And of the many homeless camps we found, many of them began to move out, but what was left was 15 tons worth of waste. We worked out an arrangement with Metro South Transfer Station and their manager there, and Christine Lewis, our Metro counselor, to take all the material over there for processing of what could be recycled. What could not be was over 300 needles, and of course, illegal paraphernalia of that type that we had to be very careful with. The site is clean now of those kinds of things. 1,000 feet of fence line had to be cleared, and where we could restore it, John Lewis, our Public Works Director, has agreed to try to help restore the fence where we don't have the capabilities to do that. There's 2,000 feet of fence on one side facing Washington Street. Amazingly enough, half the fence is overgrown on the outside of it, and the homeless folks and others could not penetrate through it if they wanted to. So we dealt with 1,000 feet that had all the holes in it, okay? Most of those holes still need additional work, and again, John Lewis and company are going to help us with that. All right, the next slide in this whole thing, okay, is another view of the site and so forth, and I think I probably described it well enough. Let's go to the next one. Okay, these are areas that we feel are important that need to be targeted now and in the future. Obviously, Clackamette Park, you're certainly interested in doing some improvements there, I know. The Cove, areas along Washington Street have a lot of potential. Of course, the landfill itself has got a whole scenario moving on it at this time. These areas we like to target, and we've been involved in all these areas over the last several years to try to help it with their enhancement. Okay, so a picture now, railroad tracks coming up, I do believe. Well, there we are. Samuel, stand up. Samuel learned how to pull 300 spikes out of railroad tracks. Union Pacific, when they were repairing tracks near our Amtrak station, took the old assemblages, 150 feet long, placed them right on the main access road, which is old 82nd, so the police and others could not do their job to keep an eye on the conditions down there. Those railroad ties and rails, the rails have been set aside for Union Pacific to come get it. The ties are being reclaimed and reused. The long and short of it, Samuel learned how to pull spikes, and I think he got really tired of it. He and Curtis were experts at pulling spikes. We know how hard it is to go working on the railroad. They do. Next slide shows some of the things that they were doing in the field with litter and debris and things of that nature. All right, what's the final result here? 13 acres is now in better shape than it was. Most importantly, the access to keep an eye on it has been established. James and I talked about that. What are you going to do for the long term? James Graham asked me, what can we do? I said, all we can do is penetrate through the messes, get rid of the messes, and make sure that access and surveillance can continue to occur when they were basically being stopped. Okay, what are some other issues that we encountered? A major die-off of many of the evergreen trees, which were required by law to be planted there, along with deciduous stock. We'd like to help you put that back together. These young people behind me have grown 25,000 plants in the last 5 years. I keep torturing them every time I see a plant. It's not just the pruning that becomes a cutting, it's the new seedling stock that we get going in our native nursery, which is out in Canby. Okay, there's opportunities to make this area linked together with some other improvements, which I just want to briefly describe to you. Metro Wetland is this thing that Metro thought, what do we do with this? This is a water enhancement facility. Yes, it draws in people and wildlife, ducks, geese, beavers. And they were trying to tell me, I listened carefully, that the water quality is being degraded by the beavers and the ducks. I said, good. And they said, well, no, we have to meet national pollution discharge permit requirements and so forth. I said, I know you do, but changing the complex of that wetland and adding some real filtering plants to it could take care of all your worries. So they're now on board to make that a major feature that people can enjoy as you come into your city. It has 2,500 feet of trail already established in it. Your 13 acres, James and I talked about this. If you look at an aerial map, which you saw on our presentation here, you can go from Metro South Transfer Station along through that corridor, long linear corridor, and end up at giant box culverts, 40 feet tall, 20 feet wide, that I know people in this room told me they used to ride their horses through. Karen Morey told me that. They used to ride their horses through because they were required by law to go underneath for cattle and horse movements on what was basically foraging lands of animals way back when. I think it's a neat time to start looking at the future, connecting Clackamette Cove through those box culverts. They're really big. Okay, where's the water go? Well, they could have a boardwalk halfway up and they'd still be 20 feet tall, if you see what I'm saying. There's a way to do this, and I believe we could look at that as a long-term goal. Now, do you have a handout in front of you, which I didn't include in the presentation that James and I put together? And this one talks about some dreams we had and dreams from the past. Is John Lewis here tonight? No? No? Well, John and I talked 4 years ago about a big mess along Washington Street. If you remember, cliffs that collapsed, basically coming down 7th Street during ice storms, and other debris and concrete and so forth were in a big pile along the edge of Washington Street. Carlotta Collette, our counselor at that time, said, isn't there something we can do to make that look more attractive? And I said, well, let me think about this. John and I got together along with Carlotta and others, Martin Montal, does that ring a bell? And came up with an idea of covering it over with waste soil the city had, and then with the rocks that were within it, making a landscape feature there. There is a mountain there. It is not the tallest mountain in Oregon City. It's not 1,500 feet tall like Highland Butte. It's 15 feet tall, but it's 300 feet long. And you go up on trails there, and it serves as a buffer to that area. The folks that visit that area, the wetland as it now exists, park their cars right there, and it's really a gateway kind of feature. Okay, so we have been committed to trying to keep that up. We built it, we kept it up. The city's helped us a bit, but we're the ones mainly doing the work. And we'd like to continue that, but we'd also like to move our efforts into Clackamette Cove with invasives, which I'm sure you have those. I know you're going to discuss that tonight with your rester cap considerations and all that. Clackamette Park, tremendous opportunities for streamside plantings. And how would this be funded? What we did, I just described, was funded by the Oregon Community Foundation. It was about $7,000 of direct payment to these young people in payroll expenses, and then we donated the rest of the equipment and things of that nature. The government through the Oregon Community Foundation, our governor's office and other sources are providing now money for year-round operations for us to help this community if you'd like to help. We'd like to help you. We specifically were hoping John would be here tonight. John's not here, right? But my young people put together an exhibit, and they'd like to bring it forward now about your newest mountain, which we feel needs to be named. Would you bring it forward, gentlemen? Okay. And we would like to have you aware that we'd like to give a tour this Saturday, every Saturday we're down there, of Mount Lewis, which is a gateway feature there. And it's all landscaped.
He's going to love
trees
that.
Now are 30 feet tall. It does serve as a beautiful buffer there, and we'd like to share. It was John's effort and Martin's and us working with him in particular. They set the stage to make it happen, and then we did a lot of the work in addition to some practical work that they did. We thank John. We thank James. We thank many of your staff we've worked with over the years for making these things possible for our youth, and I think the result is the youth have hopefully contributed to your city. So next time John is here, we want to give him the official Mount Lewis Award. Are there any questions?
Watching from home and is completely silenced by this honor. Are there any questions, commissioners?
Other than to thank that group for all the work they've done. Thank you, Jerry, and your team.
Yes. I think on behalf of all the commissioners and this community, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, was just thank you. I appreciate Jerry. I remember when I called you, and I was driving off the highway and looked down from my car and saw all of the debris down there in the wetland, in this waterway. And I was like, called Jerry. I knew who to call, and I knew it was Jerry. And I was like, do you know about all of that? Have you seen all of that garbage that's down there? And of course, he has funding. He had a crew to put to work. So I really appreciate you coming to bat for the community and cleaning that up. I know if I saw it getting off the highway, I can only think of the number of people who were getting off the ramp at 205, and you look down toward Home Depot or down toward that area, and it's nice, it was a detractor and an eyesore for our community. So I really appreciate it. You guys all did a great, great job. So thank you.
Yeah, I think
Thank you for letting us serve you.
I think the real key is that not letting it get like that again. And as you said, that you've cleared a pathway for our law enforcement folks to go back there and others so that, you know, it's not going to go back to the way it was.
Yeah.
I think that would be extremely unfortunate. People don't understand how important the wetlands are to basically doing filtering and keeping the water clean, providing pathways for wildlife, and we cannot afford to have people destroying those.
And amazingly, these wetlands on the north end, which was the intensive cleanup area where people were camping, are more or less dry during the summer, but everything by Mount Lewis heading south to Clackamette Landscape Supply and our Amtrak station is wet all summer. It's just beautiful conditions that people don't even know are there, which a new trail system could, you know, certainly address that opportunity.
Well,
Thank you.
Add that to, we'll talk to Mr. Reed about that. Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome.
Next on our agenda, we have the Fourth Amendment to the purchase and sale agreement for the property listed at 922 Main Street. Mr. Conkle or Mr. Graham, or Mr. Conkle and Mr. Graham.
On October 6th, 2021, during the last urban renewal, developer advised that an interested party had approached. Now, the developer, thank you.
Turn the mic on.
Let me see. Well, on October the 6th, 2021, during the Urban Renewal Commission meeting, the developer advised that an interested tenant had approached them. The developer presented a third amendment to the existing PSA whereby it proposed to construct a build-to-suit project belonging to a single tenant. Now, the first floor would be constructed to accommodate a brewery operation and with a tasting room and retail sales area. The second floor would consist of a restaurant belonging to the same potential tenant. And the third floor would consist of a rooftop deck with a rooftop garden belonging to the same proposed tenant. The commission really wanted, after much discussion, the commission really wanted to see a clean, complete PSA that encompasses that had all the terms and conditions in one place, and also wanted to make sure that what the developer was presenting that particular day, October 6th, would be the project that would be built going forward. Regardless of whomever the tenant would be, the commission wanted that particular project, and they liked it. This Fourth Amendment is simply asking for a 30-day extension to November the 30th, because the developer and their attorney needs some time to review the PSA that they have before them now. So staff is recommending that we simply extend a 30-day extension for the developer for that purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Are there any questions? Oh, Commissioner Smith, sorry.
So at the last meeting, I brought up the question why we wouldn't go through our finished visioning process before we made a decision on this property. And it was kind of implied that we had a limited amount of time, and we were going to schedule our urban renewal meeting within a week or two of that. That has been delayed at least till November. This is now asking for another 30 days. So we're going to have that visioning session before we even get through this now anyway. So I find that interesting that we keep doing this and kicking it down the road, even though the rest of you kind of wanted to move forward on this. And now we're going to not even get to it until after our urban renewal retreat anyway.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. What is your pleasure, commissioners? We have a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the Fourth Amendment to the existing purchase and sale agreement.
Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Commissioner Neely, moved by Commissioner Lyle Smith. Let's call for the question.
Commissioner Sean Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
No.
Commissioner Doug Neely,
Yes.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
No.
and Chair Denise McGriff.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Right. So next steps, Mr. Graham?
This one is city manager.
No, next steps on this item,
Oh, the next steps.
the same item.
Okay. So the next steps, it would be that we would bring forth a clean PSA for your consideration. And hopefully, they've asked till November 30th, but it's most likely we'll be presenting it sooner than that.
Good, that would be great. Okay, let's move on to the next item. It is the item involving a long-awaited discussion topic, restore cap letter of interest to secure property for the purposes of mitigation banking or the restoration project at the Clackamette Cove. That be Mr. Conkle?
Yes, thank you. Evening, Commissioners. RestoreCap has been in ongoing discussions with staff to develop restoration projects for the Cove that will improve water quality and habitat through improved water circulation, reduced stagnation, mobilizing sand deposits at the mouth of the Cove, and assessing the nutrient load that may be contributing to algae blooms. RestoreCap is also assessing the possibility of creating mitigation credits or a specific restoration project that is incorporated in the future development of the property or as a standalone mitigation project. Providing public access and recreational opportunities within and around the Cove raises challenges to the viability of creating a project that will qualify as mitigation credits. Therefore, a standalone mitigation project is being explored as part of this proposal. If the LOI is approved, RestoreCap will be creating comprehensive restoration plan options, meeting with state and federal regulatory agencies and commercial real estate developers to assure best practices for future upland development is maintained, and will develop financial performance to support mitigation banking and or standalone project. Acceptance of the LOI will allow RestoreCap to enter the property and prohibit the Urban Renewal Commission from selling or leasing the properties as identified as lots 1 through 11 to any other party, or to accept any offers related to the properties without prior consent of RestoreCap for 6 months. The term may be extended for an additional 6 months by mutual agreement of both parties. There is no monetary investment required of the Urban Renewal Agency other than the staff time for multiple departments necessary to support, inform, and review the work of RestoreCap. This is continuing on work that had begun in December of 2018 under a previous agreement with the Cove LLC when it was Mr. Mooney was part of that original development proposal on that property that lapsed. The Urban Renewal Commission directed staff to re-engage RestoreCap, and this is the culmination of those discussions with RestoreCap. I would also like to ask Mr. Rob Marini from RestoreCap is on the line to say a couple of words, and he'd be able to assist if there are any questions once he's done presenting.
Please go right ahead, just introduce yourself for the record.
You're muted.
Thank you. Just got to get off mute, which is always hard.
Okay. Rob Marini here. I'm happy to be presenting. I presented, I guess, about 3 years ago now on the previous effort for the Cove. We're anxious to get started on this in earnest. We have been doing a fair amount of work on it to date. We've in fact, I have Carrie Duppler with me, and she can add into some of the work that we've done today to assess the water quality, to try to come up with solutions to the algae blooms, and to manage the sandbar that is at the mouth of the Cove. And Carrie, if you want to say a few words. Carrie, well, there she is.
We still can't hear you.
Oh, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I'm in multiple systems here with both phone and the Zoom call. My name is Carrie Dupler. I'm a biologist with RestoreCap, and as Rob mentioned, we are using the existing feasibility study and then adding in a sort of second layer to that, looking at various restoration scenarios on the Clackamette, kind of bringing in an additional flow from the Clackamette River into the Cove to alleviate some of the water quality issues. Paired with that, we are looking at different ways that we can engage the community in the restoration project through adding in, potentially additional picnic areas, more open space areas that the community can use within the Cove, really to keep it as a public amenity.
So are there any questions? That kind of sums up where we are today. We've been waiting for the LOI to be executed so we could continue to move forward on this at this point.
I guess just to add one thing, I think one of the premises that one of the assumptions that are being made as RestoreCap is working to develop this plan is that recreational opportunities and public access to the Cove are a priority of the Urban Renewal Commission. I believe that is the case. If it's not, we would like to know that now, because, and Rob, you can maybe speak to this much better than I can, concerning, the opportunity for mitigation credits, a banking type system, becomes more difficult once you start to introduce more and more public access and recreational opportunities into that mitigation area, potentially making it difficult, which is why we were trying to identify that, they're going to look at the possibility of mitigation credits, but also that this may be a restoration project that will need funding, whether through private upland development that occurs, grants, public investment, so that, I just want to be clear on that, that balancing those two sometimes impacts what the options available to fund it are at the end of the day. And Rob, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Only that we understand that the access for the community is an important part of this, and we'll try, and we're going to attempt to have those two goals work together. We will be going and meeting with the Corps of Engineers and other regulatory bodies fairly shortly as we get a little more information on the site and get a better idea of the circulation improvements that need to occur. And then we'll present a conceptual approach to them to see, how those two uses can be, married together. That's our goal.
Can't hear you.
We're just asking if there are any questions, so we have one.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, why are all 11 lots included?
So lots 1 through 10, which are primarily the lots directly around the Cove, owned by the Urban Renewal Agency. And Rob, you can add whatever I miss here. But when we were looking at the opportunity for doing mitigation, for example, kind of on the northern shoreline of the Cove, it's real steep drop-offs. There may be, as part of this, some need to move earth around. And so we included the upland lots that were the development lots because potentially, maybe some of that dirt gets moved up into there if it's necessary. So it was trying to offer the most flexibility on the areas that they could study and look at to try to put together a comprehensive plan. We included Lot 11, which is across the street from Main Street Extension there, just as an extra piece. Originally, it was kind of an entry stormwater type of facility. And so it was included in there just in case there was some opportunity or need to utilize that area.
So does it in any way preclude us or potentially preclude us from using those lots? Or maybe it just depends on what proposal comes forward that we would consider?
Yeah, in our discussions with Rob and his team, it's, currently the assumption is that the lots that were platted for development, the goal is to make sure that those are still available for development until there's different direction provided. So really, it's incorporated into potentially moving earth around. There may be some things that we could do up there. I think that's going to come out of the study, but the goal is that around the Cove is where the mitigation is looked at, and then realizing that we have this upland development potential that's still there that needs to be included in any review, which is why some of the reach out to developers is necessary to make sure that we understand what the development requirements in the upland areas are maintained.
Okay. Yeah, I have no idea what the future is for those lots. I'm just wondering, just want to know all the hoops and making sure we're not, tying something up inadvertently. I mean, we do receive proposals about this area, unsolicited proposals. So it's hard for me to speak what's going to happen in the next 6 months. So it sounds like if something were to come in, hypothetically, say it was the best project we've ever seen or something, and it just means we have to check in with Restore Cap before we were to enter into any agreement to make sure that what we are doing doesn't impede maybe potential mitigation or restoration. Is that
right? Restore Cap during that 6 months, or if it's extended for 6 months, during whatever time we're under contract under this LOI, they would need to agree to any work that we're doing. So either if they didn't agree, we'd have to wait until the LOI expired. Otherwise, it would be working together to understand what's proposed, what's being proposed with Restore Cap's mitigation versus what any potential future development proposal is and how those two coincide with one another.
all right? Thanks.
Are there any other questions of the commissioners? So what is your pleasure for this particular item? We have, it's been suggested that we approve, that we can approve, not that we should, that we can approve the agreement. I'd like to call for a motion then.
I so move that we can approve the agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Wiley, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Sean Cross?
Yes.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle-Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl? Aye. Commissioner Doug Neely?
Yes.
You say that again?
Yes.
Commissioner Rocky Smith?
No.
And Chair Denise McGriff?
Yes, it's unfortunate that Commissioner O'Donnell is excused today because this was a very high priority for him, and I know he's probably read the material, so I'll look forward to talking with him later. All right, Mr. Conkle or Mr. Graham, are there any communications that you are aware of?
Oh, ma'am.
All right, are there any communications from the Urban Renewal Commissioners? And can you remind us when our meeting is for the completing the visioning session, please?
The 10th?
Yes, I believe it is, but we'll just say it for the record.
November 16th at 6 p.m. It's a Tuesday.
And has everybody confirmed at this time?
Yes, they have.
All right, and we'll be meeting here, or where will we be meeting?
Here.
We'll be meeting here. Okay, just for the public, we'll be meeting here for our continuation and hopefully conclusion to our visioning session for the Urban Renewal District. And with that, thank everybody for attending, and thank you, Jerry, again for coming back for repeat. And thank you to all your staff. With that, the meeting is adjourned. We'll reconvene as the Oregon City Commission at 7 p.m. Thank you.